That was great, man. Where were you last night at the fire? I know, man. That would have been great. Anyways, it was great now, too. Yep, you're up right now, buddy. Up next is a good friend of mine. Isn't it funny, man? Is that pretty presumptuous? I spent 2 days camping, hanging out, talking, eating.
And we bonded.
And then all of a sudden, now he's my friend. Well, that's right, I'm needy. So, you want this in the? Yeah, you need both hands, don't you? All right, well, while he's setting up. Hey, look, there is a way to stop cutting down all the trees, and there is a way to grow real food without destroying the land. And that's why I'm so excited about Shawn Hempzels, local guy, very passionate about trying to do something organic, something healthy and friendly to his community. So hope everybody checks out his website after and really start to support the cause. A million little causes, whatever you want to call it. The cause is freedom. You ready, bud?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Shawn House.
All right, Freedom Palooza. Yeah. Woo! So thanks to Paul, and thanks to everybody that really cares about what's going on. This type of event is great for me just to get out and relax and share a little bit of my experiences. I'm coming from the trenches. I'm out there doing it. I've been a passionate activist for cannabis and hemp for a long time. The focus is on industrial hemp, but I'm just glad to come out here and share this with you. First off, I'm not obviously an expert. I just have trials and tribulations, and I've learned the hard way what works and what doesn't work, and these are my opinions. Coming from a background of the father being in the military, I grew up as an Alex P. Keaton, believing that a centralized authoritarian government was the right way. And as I got older and I heard Andre Moreau speak down in Philadelphia when he was running for president, I was like, wow, these guys are where it's at in politics. And so I joined the Libertarian Party. I'd always been involved previous with the Birch Society. I understood what was going on with the subjugation or the subversion of our Constitution and through the State Department and stuff, but they weren't politically active, and I was wondering what's going on. And then I think they still supported the war on drugs, and here the Libertarians were saying we need to end the war on drugs. And I've always been involved with antiques and collectibles. My father was doing that when we were in Germany and traveling. And as a young man, I guess 16, 17, you kind of experience cannabis like you could experience tobacco and things of that nature. And it was so cool. And one of these events that we were at, I saw this long-haired guy, and he had one of these t-shirts on the back of it, and it had the USS Constitution and all the different things that you could make from hemp, paper and things of that nature, and it really got me thinking. And later on, I had read Jack Herer's book, and he's kind of the godfather of the movement. He's the one that proved that the U.S. Department of Agriculture had produced a film for the government in 1940s called Hemp for Victory, which encouraged our farmers to grow this crop that had been illegal basically since the 1950s, and worse after Dick Nixon in the 1970s. But he really pushed this, and he got it in writing that the government had produced this film that they denied making. And it's in the Congressional Library called Hemp for Victory, and you can YouTube this. But in my research, you find out that the first Gutenberg Bible was printed on hemp paper. The drafts, now we're getting ready to celebrate July 4th. And here when Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin and them were crafting the Declaration of the States, it was all done on hemp paper. And the sailing ships that our forefathers came through to conquer the Native Americans here, that was hemp rigging. Yeah, it was canvas. And when you start looking at the history and stuff that we're not being taught, because we're in a cookie cutter mentality in the sense of education. Everybody needs to learn the same thing, and we're not taught to question things And it's easy to leave stuff out. And for 100 years, this stuff with hemp has been left out. When I'm selling my pretzels, and that's what we make, hemp pretzels, and we've been doing them for about 15 years, people are like, am I going to get high from this? And I'm like, you see this red dot? It's from banging my head every time I hear this. Like, you know, grow up. But this is what people, their parents didn't know about it. Their grandparents kind of knew about it. You know, talking to grandparents, it's like, oh, hemp, that's rope. Yeah, because Dad was in the Navy or somebody like that. And I was like, yeah. And the USS Constitution used 60 tons of hemp rigging. That's the ropes, the sailcloths, the homespun for the clothing and things twice annually. And where was that coming? Well, it was coming from the Hamptons in New York, which is a Dutch word for hemp. It was coming from Lancaster County. It was coming from Virginia. Some of the historical facts in the founding of this nation is you were required to grow hemp for sustainability. I mean, because again, you're using it in homespun. When we see the pictures of Ma or Paul working on that spinning wheel, that 90% was either hemp or flax. Historically, there was no difference between that. That was homespun, and that was by one of the oldest fiber seed and oil crops. Even the Conestoga wagon, I mean, they're making this in Lancaster County. A lot of it's going to the Philadelphia rope walks or the Navy Yards, just like in Boston. It was the same way. And it was also covering the Conestoga wagons that went further westward. So this plant is 8 to 18 feet tall in 90 days. Historically in Lancaster County, where I'm from, in Hempfield Township, when tobacco prices were down, they grew hemp. When hemp prices were down, they grew tobacco. And it was all on economics. It wasn't on subsidies. And that's where we want to get away from this type of mentality that you got to subsidize me for not growing it or subsidize me for growing it. Get rid of the subsidies. Let the free market, the true market, work on that. The winners will rise to the top. The other folks will go find something else to do. And you can take that a little bit further in the sense of this cannabis movement and this thing with medical marijuana. And I try to discourage folks that I know from using this type of identification for cannabis. This is an old term, or not an old term, this is from the 1930s. And this is based in racism. So, you know, there's lots of different slang terms for pot, hemp, ganja, whatever they want to call it. U.S. Department of Agriculture identified medicinal or recreational cannabis, as I like to refer to it, as Indian hemp, because that would come from India or would have come from China. But marijuana is what has kept us in the dark for about 100 years, and it's all good. I mean, we've talked a lot of biblical things here, and I like to always refer to Genesis 1:29, let the seed be meat-bearing as meat to man, and that's true. And as I've also pointed out, as last night as today, we're in a complicated world, and we can really make it simple. And that's getting back to freeing the seed, exactly. It's decriminalizing it also. It's not legalizing it for license, but, you know, growing it for seed, fiber, oil, whatever you like, without criminal penalty, without going to jail, without having to pay an excessive tax to grow it. You know, they're going to do it sooner or later, but what's happened is the people in the movement are like, okay, well, let Monsanto GMO it, and then you can do it. No, absolutely not. We want to keep clean heirloom seeds, the strongest type of seeds. Don't GMO it. The other thing is, don't get into the mentality of the corporate agriculture, where in Canada, you can grow hemp, industrial hemp, but it's 20-acre minimum, and that's bullshit. Back in the day, in Pennsylvania or Kentucky, you could grow 1 acre of hemp because maybe you wanted to grow it for seed, but that's all you wanted to do. You didn't want to have to take care of 20 acres and devote it strictly to hemp or whatever you were going to get pushed into. So we want to make sure that when we're working to repeal the restrictions that are prohibiting the farmers from growing hemp or cannabis, that's what we're doing, repealing the restrictions, not adding more bureaucracy. We don't want farmers, and farmers don't want to do anything complicated, but you don't want to get fingerprinted, and you don't want to have to do that type of background check and feel like a criminal to grow this vegetable seed and oil crop. So in my effort of freeing the seed, when I'm talking about this, I'm taking the libertarian perspective of the least amount of regulations, the better. And for the people that have an issue with, well, you could be under the influence of cannabis, you could be hallucinating under cannabis. Well, if you're going to drive that way, or you're going to ride a bike, or you're going to commit an act of fraud or violence, and you're under the influence, it doesn't matter if it's alcohol, Percocet, Oxycontin, sugar, you know, then you've broken the law and you enforce those laws. But we need to get rid of the laws that are putting people in jail for self-medicating or wanting to grow this hemp. Now, I have lots of stuff over at my booth. You can see historical facts, you can taste the seed, you can taste the pretzels, you can taste the mustard, things of that nature.
Sean,
yes,
I have
Vince.
a question, please.
Yes, Vince.
Can hemp seed or hemp biomass be used for biofuel?
Absolutely. It's been noted that there's higher cellulose content in hemp stalk than there is in corn or switchgrass, and that's something the Bush administration was pushing for 4, 5, 6 years ago when it came to energy. I was privileged. I was at a normal event in Washington, D.C. Months before 9/11. I was privileged to meet Grayson and Kelly Ziegler, and they had converted a Mercedes-Benz that had run on hemp biodiesel fuel. Yeah. It was so cool. They brought it down to the normal event. They putted around the block. It smelled like vegetable oil, but they had no idea what to do. And I'm like, dude, you got to come up to Hempfield Township. You know, they wanted to go for a journey. You got to come right at the beginning. Well, they took it better yet. They went to Henry Anslinger's grave, and that's a whole different story, in Pittsburgh near Westmoreland County. Then they came to Hempfield Township, to Conestoga. Then they went to 3 Mile Island, and then they went to Philadelphia, and then they went to New York and Canada, and they did 13,000 miles on hemp biodiesel fuel. And this was July, 3 months before 9/11. And I'm in the newspaper because we had a hemp event, and we had a little gathering, and we were talking and showing the history, because we're in Hempfield Township. And, you know, there's no war. I'm saying there's no war and there's no pollution. The economists, or the naysayers were like, well, it's 40 bucks a gallon. But I'm like, there's no war and there's no pollution. You know, and when you look at what it costs for an actual true gallon of gas, and you don't count in military and all the other things that inflate it, it's a lot more expensive. And again, we need this choice. And Rudolph Diesel, for those that don't know, in the 1890s, 1892, I think, created the diesel engine to run on vegetable and seed oil. People will say hemp, but it was also peanut oil, vegetable, whatever it was, because the Industrial Revolution, the folks didn't want to get stuck in a single source supply. And that's what we have with petroleum. You have single source. What we're looking to do, and what I'm looking to do, is empower the farmers. Ultimately, my goal, my company, is to contract with the Pennsylvania farmers. Right now, I work with bakeries, little bakeries in Hanover, Pennsylvania, that are hand rolling them, to bakeries in Lancaster that are making my machine extruded soft pretzels, to an Amish community that's using state-of-the-art equipment helped by Penn State to make my mustard, with another facility in Lancaster that crushes our seed. So I'm not creating a new company and then trying to staff it and then trying to do everything. What I'm trying to do is add value, working with these other industries that are actually in decline. You know, not as many people eat pretzels because it's not as hip to be eating carbs. You know, it's getting into this gluten-free thing. And so what we're doing is, with our traditional sourdough pretzel, which is wheat, is adding hemp seed, hemp flour, brown rice flour, and maybe hemp oil. And on our soft pretzel, which is baked and frozen, adding hemp oil. And it's, you know, you got to go with your gut instinct. Whatever you choose to do in life, stay with your gut and keep going with that, because there's many times I could have closed down shop, and I'm still struggling. And I appreciate the opportunity to come out and speak about this, but go with your gut, because like I was saying earlier, and like Chef Cannabis was talking about with the gluten-free issue, hemp is gluten-free. And hemp is a source of protein equal to beef, eggs, and soy. You know, for the vegetarians, for the folks that are trying to get off the corn-fed beef and the arsenic-laden chicken, and they're looking for protein, hemp is a good source. And the cool thing about this, too, is now Dr. Oz is talking about it. And I hear, you know, turn off your TV, throw your TV out. Well, it's like the tools. It's like anything else. It's like your cell phone. It's like anything else. You need You need these tools if you want to stay connected. You know, you need these tools. And now you have Dr. Oz talking about protein and omega-3 and your hair and your heart. And we're all getting older. And we're all having this debate about health care. And if you take control of your own health, you're not going to have the government mandating, thinking they own your body. And so they're going to tell you that you can't drink a soda in New York. You know, if I want to drink a soda, I'm going to drink a soda. I choose not to drink a soda. If I want to smoke a cigarette, I'll smoke a cigarette. I choose not to smoke a cigarette. I like the finer things in life, you know, and that's our choice as we get older, but that's a way of nipping this healthcare issue in the bud. And it comes from the power of the seed. Vitamin E, potassium, magnesium, iron, zinc. Zinc is good for your pencil, men. So if there's any issue down the road, that's why cockatiels and other birds are fed that stuff. And when the Marijuana Tax Act was coming through in the 1930s, and this is the importance of tools, we didn't get on the cell phone or we didn't get on the fax machine and start faxing around. Look out. You know, now we know about the NDAA and we know about the Patriot Act, and we're doing our best to spread the word, but they couldn't do that back in the day. Back in the day, wherever this stuff's hiding, I showed you the marijuana thing. But back in the day, this is 1927. This is U.S. Department of Agriculture. This is drug crops growing in the United States. I have this original issue. They called this plant cannabis. They didn't call it marijuana. So when they're talking about black men raping white women high on this narcotic or this drug, this was cannabis. This was stuff that was used in pharmacopoeia. This is Norristown, Pennsylvania. I have this original bottle, this original box. It's cannabis indica that's used in this tincture. The point being is our government knew the difference between the species. This is Pelham, Pennsylvania. I'm in York County and Lancaster County. I'm in Hempfield Township. I mean, they grew so much hemp in Columbia, in Wrightsville, that Columbia changed its name to Columbia when they were competing to see where the District of Columbia would be, where the United States Congress and where our federal would be. They tried to do that in Columbia because of the hemp mills and everything else. And then another interesting fact is, I was showing you the U.S. Department of Agriculture growing hemp. And these are an example of a hemp stone from Lancaster County. This is unique to this area. This is so unique, and this is a way of decorticating that hemp fiber. This is a plant that grew 8 to 18 feet tall in 90 days. 150 to 300 plants per meter, 1 million plants per acre. This is a tough plant. So they're going to cut this plant down by hand, and then they're going to break it. If you see the old black guys or old white guys in the field in Kentucky, that's a hemp break. They're either breaking hemp or flax. But the hemp millstone was a way of decorticating it. And in Pennsylvania Dutch, der Humph, this is German in hemp and der Humph. But it was so unique that George Washington came up to Whitmer's mill near a 340 intercourse to see these hemp millstones in action. And there's a story about this hemp millstone, and this is credit to Les Stark, a hemp historian from Ephrata that I've known for years, and he wrote a book called Hempstone Heritage. But the story has it that one of the guys was so excited that George Washington was looking at this hemp milling area that he had got his arm caught and got it crushed in the stone. When George Washington went back to Mount Vernon, he didn't use that same type of technology. They used a different type of breaking. But that's the fiber of the plant. Okay, I'm interested in the seed because that seed is energy. And you can eat that seed by itself, and we can put it in pretzels. But there's in the plant itself is the fiber. Now, this is called the outer part is called the bark. The inner part would be the long fiber, and this is the stuff, again, like I was saying earlier, that would have been on your spinning wheel. This is the stuff that's very small that you continue to twist up, and you can create your ropes, your cordage, or make into your linen. And then there's a short fiber, which is called your tow. And this is used in your car parts. All your new cars, any new cars for the last 7 years, interior car panels are hemp and flax. But take this bark, and this is another money maker. This is how we're going to create jobs in Pennsylvania and the United States. Mix it with lime, and Pennsylvania is the 5th largest producer of lime in the United States. And you have hempcrete, okay? Now, this is from Texas. This came from a place in Texas. They had to import the shive, or the bark, and they combined it with lime and water, and they're making homes. And they've done one in North Carolina. And you can Google this and YouTube it and see it. But the interesting thing that I like to point out is Siemens Construction, which is the biggest European conglomerate, that's Siemens Telecommunications, is making residential and commercial homes from this hempcrete, which is carbon negative. And you got to understand that it's tax, tax, tax. You know, they're going to have carbon taxes. So when you take this brick, has 2,000 degrees of heat to heat up that brick. You're going to want to be taxed on that. You know, it's like the emissions tax, where you pay it and then you can pollute. Well, you're going to pay, it's just going to add to the cost. Hempcrete is carbon negative. So if you can see this very small picture, this is a beverage distributor in the United Kingdom. There is no heating and there's no air conditioning in this building. It has a grass roof, but it's 100% hempcrete. It keeps the temperature equal, like 68. People say they feel better in it. They don't have the ugly building syndrome that you have when you have the asbestos and you have all the other petroleum-based products that we've gotten into. You know, and so what I'm getting at is the rest of Europe is doing it, and we're the only industrialized nation that's not growing hemp. And we're in Hempfield Township, or the Hamptons. Take that bark, non-formaldehyde glue, and you got press board, okay? So you got to plant 8 to 18 feet tall in 90 days, instead of tearing down forests that you have ecosystems, where you have owls and you have other things that are living, and tearing down our old growth forest. Concrete. This is hemp in Italian. They call it canapia. You see how tall that bad boy is. It looks like bamboo jute or sisal. This is car matting. Like I said, the interior car panels are either hemp and polyester injection molded or matting, which is hemp and flax. Why? It's recyclable. The Germans, I mean, your appliances, from the beginning of inception to how you're going to dispose of it. And going back to that hempcrete, when we destroy old buildings, and I don't have any problem with that, but you get 60% that goes into the landfills. Here you're talking about taking that building down, grinding it up, and putting back into the farmer's fields, because that's lime, and that's vegetable matter. And you can reuse the steel, you can reuse the meshing, you can reuse the reinforcement, any of the wood or anything of that nature you'd like to do. This is a poster from the 1940s. I don't have this original one, but I collect a lot of original stuff. This is the government saying we need to grow hemp for the war. World War II, the Japanese had cut off our cheap supply of manila hemp. All of a sudden, it's time to grow hemp for the war effort. So they filmed that, they had that film, and they issued tax stamps for it, and that, you know, they grew hemp, and then in the 50s, they cut it down. So the Marijuana Tax Act was started by a control of resources. In my mind, in my study, they never wanted to empower the farmers. Okay, never wanted to empower the farmers. Popular Mechanics in 1937 called this the new billion-dollar crop. 25,000 different products, from cellophane to dynamite, all from the farmer's fields. From a farmer's point of view, an easy crop to grow, yielding X amount of tons of fiber. And I have the original, I just can't think about it, or the specifics. At the end of that article, the interesting thing was hemp and marijuana as a crop seemed to be exaggerated. And this is right around the same time that the Marijuana Tax Act came out. And they called it marijuana because it was a slang term. Texas tried to outlaw cannabis in the 1920s, and they used the word cannabis, and it didn't stand up in court. How can you outlaw something that was used in pharmacopoeia, is used in medicine, that the people would grow in their backyard because the Russians and the Czechs and the Polish people, this is how they knew. They used the plant for everything. And our Department of Agriculture, again, this is 1913, I'm showing pictures of, they called it Indian drug-producing hemp next to Kentucky field hemp. But they knew the difference between the two. But it was this use of this word marijuana. Now, Timothy Leary challenged this in the 1970s. And basically what happened was it was going to become unconstitutional. This tax stamp that originally started as a fee if you wanted to grow marijuana, that you had to pay $100 an ounce or whatever it was, whatever they start, just like the machine gun tax was just a tax at the beginning, but basically it got rid of the industry, and that's what happened. It made it more complicated. Like I said earlier, farmers don't want to go through the bullshit. They want to grow and they want to sell, and they want to do it as cheap as possible so they don't have to charge as much, because we're talking commodity agriculture. So who was in charge at that time? Richard Nixon, good old Tricky Dick. He asked our Governor Schaefer, and I'm from Pennsylvania, in 1971, Governor Schaefer was a Republican, conservative, not a pothead, not a hippie, who studied at $150,000. He had the Schaefer Commission report. And basically it was to study the marijuana issue. And Governor Schaefer's ending to that, and I have this original issue, was de-emphasize marijuana as a problem, and that's on the federal level. That's 40 years ago. What have we done? We spent billions of dollars. If you look at the Drug Enforcement Agency's budget, they spend $1 billion on marijuana eradication. 99% of that is feral industrial hemp, left over from the war or coming up and reseeding itself. You know, it's the same thing, and up to the future here, I've met Alex Whiteplume from the Lakota Indian Nation at Boston and one of the Hemp Industries Association. I was a former board member of the Hemp Industries Association, and I got the honor of powwowing with Alex, and it's different when you're talking to somebody that's regulated to the reservation. You know, we're free, and what do? Do we come out and interact? A lot of people don't come out. I mean, what's happening with the Phillies? What's happening with the, you know, the baseball game instead of the important things, right? This is the important stuff. But here, Alex wanted to grow hemp. When they were put on the reservation in the 1860s, part of that stipulation was to farm, grow hemp. They couldn't hunt the buffalo. The buffalo, they used everything from the bottom to the top. And that's what you can do with hemp. So Alex Whiteplume got permission from the tribe and the other authorities, but not the Drug Enforcement Agency. And this was Dick Nixon's mistake. He didn't listen to Governor Schaefer. He threw Schaefer's commission report away and declared the war on drugs. And the whole cannabis species, all 700 varieties of the cultivar of the seed, were scheduled as a Schedule I narcotic. So you didn't go to the U.S. Department of Agriculture or to your neighbor like you would have before to get your seed. You had to get a permit from the Drug Enforcement Agency, a permit that cost $2,300, and you're going to try to pay it, and they're not going to give you your permit. You know, so this is what Dick Nixon did, and when Alex Whiteplume and you can see this at Silent Nation, check that out, that's a very good video. The DEA came in when they did their first planning, pulled it all up, guns, the whole 9 yards, helicopters flew in, ripped all this stuff up. But they were doing it near harvest time, and they didn't touch the field, and it reseeds itself, so it comes up every year. Now Alex has an injunction against him. If he goes anywhere near it, he'll be in jail. Now, isn't that a sin? You're going to put somebody in jail for trying to be self-sufficient by growing a plant that can provide paper, fiber, seed, and oil. And they had already contracted with a Kentucky hemp company for their fiber that was going to add value to it, just like my company wants to do, add value to the farmers' fields, not just get them for the commodity price, but add value to it. You know, and that's one of the things that we're working to change. So Ron Paul, who's been a hero of mine for years, he's not a pothead, he's not a hippie, but his common sense, has been sponsoring for the last 7 or 8 or 9 years a resolution which is called the Industrial Hemp Act. And it says, hemp is not marijuana. It takes it out of the Drug Enforcement Agency's oversight and puts it back to the Department of Agriculture, back to the states, where we can work on it And that's why we want to continue to prepare, because there is going to be change. But we want to make sure the legislators don't jump on the boat. Yeah, it's GMO'd. You got to get the seed through Monsanto. You know, you got to do this, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no. Or you got to get your fingerprints. You know, you got to get a drug background if you want to grow hemp or cannabis. And we shouldn't let them do that to us. So anyways, that's what we want to do. We want to free the seed. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I forgot. The government tried to ban hemp foods from 2000 to 2004. I bought the hemp business from Hempzels in 1998. It's been a struggle, but I'm happy to be here. Any of the seeds that I've sown that take root, good. Go out there and sow them further. You know, when my soft pretzels get into giant foods, buy them.
Yeah, brother.
Buy them, because then I can help fund the rest of the revolution. I can sponsor versus not sponsoring. You know, I'd like to do more. So it's Josh, it's my 6-year-old, it's Joshua, it's the kids that are the future.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about trying to preach to too many 60 or 70 or 80-year-olds. They had their chance, and I'm not saying they're all bad. You know, but if there's a neocon, I'm going to spend so much time talking to him or her, and I'm going to plant that seed and walk away. The seed is powerful. Once it takes root, they'll change their mind. They'll see something else. They'll buy something. You know, they'll get a T-shirt made of hemp. Their kids will start talking about hemp. Their kids will start talking about Ron Paul. They'll be part of the revolution, and we will change things. But we do want to repeal the restrictions prohibiting the farmers from growing industrial hemp. Try some of my products over there. Enjoy the music. I always like to say, don't do what Nancy Reagan said. Just say no, N-O. Do me a favor and say K-N-O-W and no. And then make your own determination. Don't let somebody else do that. Peace.
Yeah, brother.
Oh, last thing before I forget. Riley Cote. I pronounced that correct, Paul? He's a Philadelphia Flyer. He was an enforcer on the Philadelphia Flyers. He was there till 2010. He's now an assistant coach for their farm team. He's having an event in Philadelphia, August 25th. It's called the Hemp Heals Music Event. It's on Facebook. It's at Penn's Landing. Hempzels is going to be the pretzel there. Riley's into health and wellness. He's not afraid of cannabis. He's not afraid of the other benefits. He's from Canada, but he's into health. He's a vegan, vegetarian, 6'2". I had a sit down with him Wednesday because I'm going to help with this event. We're going to educate just like we're doing, but I'd encourage you to spread the word about that event. He's got 7,000 tickets. They got 1,500 sold. It's well worth it to come down. Capital Hemp's going to be there from DC. Vote Hemp Industries Association. Some folks are coming out from Dr. Bronner's. So my peeps from the West Coast are coming to the East Coast. And I've been flying under the radar for 15, 20 years sowing these seeds. And I would like you guys to sow the seeds further within your network of groups, because we want to challenge Corbett, because we're talking about jobs, and we can do it 2013 right away. Right away if we want to create housing and all that other things. But this event, and Riley Cote from the Philadelphia Flyers is mainstream. That's what I'm getting at. He's mainstream. He's still having the hurdles, but it's not like he was trying to have a hemp event when we did in '98, and they're all coming down on you because it's going to be a big pot fest. You know, so much baloney. But we've come a long way, and what I'm talking about is it's the children. And you just got to say no and understand. Good, bad, or indifferent. Make your decision and help promote freedom. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, brother.
I just figured, you know what, I'm going to let you go so you can't talk.
But then I forgot to route.